And now Ms. Moncrieffe will give you further instructions and ask further questions.
Good morning again. Now, as I stated to you earlier, my client is CPS, the state, the government. And my client, CPS, removed the children in this case from their homes based on what they thought was a situation that created imminent danger for these children and that they had to be removed from the home. Question for you jurors. Has anyone here ever had any interaction with CPS, whether personally, as in your own case, or know of other people who had their children removed or CPS involvement? Let's start with Mr. Blackman.
Sure. As an educator, I have had to call CPS on a few occasions for students who were under my suspicion of abuse. My duty as an educator is to report them. Once the reporting is done, I'm out of the situation at that point. I just observe what I see, report that to CPS, and I've done that a few times in my career. But on the personal side, no interaction at all.
Okay. And Miss Walker?
Yes, I had a childhood friend. Her ex was calling CPS on her, and CPS actually saw that they were just frivolous calls being used to manipulate them to try and get her in trouble.
Okay. And Mr. Morgan?
Yes, I've actually sat in the courtroom and have watched cases where CPS was involved. I have talked with people that have worked at CPS, so yes, I've had interaction with them.
All right. Now, based on your interactions with CPS, anyone, do you believe that it is never okay or sometimes okay for CPS to be involved in having to remove a child from a home?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
Yeah, if
Ms.
they
Walker?
do their due diligence. That situation that I described, I've heard some other horror stories from other people, just social media and whatnot. But I felt like they did a really thorough job and understood that someone was just trying to make trouble for a parent.
Okay. Now, in understanding, let me go back to Mr. Blackman. Mr. Blackman, are you an educator?
I am.
Okay. And you mentioned that there were some times where your job required you to have to contact CPS.
It did, yes.
Okay. And for the purposes of this debate, the fact that you're an educator, you're what's called a mandatory reporter, right? You have to report things or any suspicions or concerns that you have regarding a child being possibly in danger of being abused or neglected to CPS.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And do you take that responsibility seriously?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Okay. Do you believe that sometimes your phone call may have made the difference for a child?
Yes.
Okay. Now, beyond just removing a child, CPS has roughly a 1-year time frame in which to work their case and try to come up with some resolution. If there's no resolution resulting in a child automatically being placed back home, then a lot of times we wind up here, like we are today, where we're talking about termination of parental rights. And as I explained to you all earlier, what that entails, do you all ever believe that there are times when it is warranted for the government, CPS, to ask that a parent's rights be terminated based on certain facts?
Those must be some very extreme facts.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
That's how I'm feeling about it. Like it has to be just finding the kid locked in a closet and they're bruised and malnourished, and they look like they are from some movie set talking about prehistoric times. Like, I'm thinking it has to be in that extreme.
All right.
Yeah.
And for me, I would say yes to that, and I would couple it with, on the psychological side as well. I think psychological abuse would probably enter into that, but the bar has to be a little higher, because psychology is a little more what's the word I'm looking for? A little more a subjective standard. So you'd have to have more evidence, I would believe, for psychological damage, but I believe psychological damage is as bad as physical damage would be to a child from the parent.
Mr. Morgan?
Yes, I believe they can ask it, but as we've talked about earlier, this has to be done with clear and convincing evidence, and also, there needs to be due process given to that whole termination issue.
Okay. All right. I'm glad you brought it back.